All right, it looks like we're live. Good evening, everyone. I'm Chad Baker, the chair of the Democratic Party here in York County, and I welcome you to the first of our candidate live chats here on Facebook. We'll be having a number of other chats throughout the next few weeks, so be sure to check our Facebook page, our website, and other social media for this for who we're going to be talking to, for the candidates we're going to be talking to. But it's my honor actually to start this off with someone I consider a friend, Shanna Danielson. Shanna is running for the 31st State Senate District, which is in the northwestern corner, actually northwestern and kind of western parts of York County, and it extends into Cumberland County as well. I'm going to give Shanna an opportunity here just to give a brief introduction of herself, and then we're going to launch in with a few questions and we'll go from there. So Shanna, thank you for joining us, and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure, thanks for having me. I want to preface this by saying Zoom just told me my internet connection is unstable, so this will be fun. Hopefully we'll be fine, but just in case, you'll know why. So I'm Shanna Danielson. I am a middle school band director and a mom. I live in Dillsburg, so northern portion of York County. And I'm running for state senate in District 31, where Chad just told you where that is. And I'm really excited to be running for this seat. This is a district that we can win, and I'll talk a little bit more about that later on. But I am just a working class mom who's had about enough of a system that doesn't work for working people. And many of you probably remember I ran for State House in 2018 in a pretty difficult seat, but that was an incredible experience. We formed the Northern York Democratic Club out of that campaign, which I always make the argument is easily the most active club in all of York County, with just people with hearts of gold who are ready to make change in a place that's often forgotten, by the national party and honestly by pretty much everyone. So we're making waves up here. We've been doing it for years and we haven't slowed down at all. And it's just an incredible time to be running. It's a crazy time to be running. But we're running a real campaign here and we're going to win.
Awesome. And yes, we know you're going to win. We're putting everything behind you, so we know you're going to win. So, so that kind of leads obviously into my next question. You talked a little bit about running 2 years ago for the State House and obviously staying actively involved with the Northern York Democratic Club. And those that know you also know that you're pretty actively involved as an activist in a number of different areas as well. Why is it that you decided to run this time, and why specifically for this office, for the state senate?
Sure. So my involvement, kind of what led me to the State House run in 2018 was my involved Moms Demand Action. We have lived here for a few years, but I had been teaching prior to that in a place up in the Pennsylvania wilds where there aren't a lot of civic organizations or clubs or ways to get involved for issues like this. So when the Las Vegas shooting happened, I just felt like I can't sit by and not do anything about this issue. That's very personal to me. And so I joined Moms and worked my way up to legislative lead in that chapter, which was a stepping stone to getting me to run last time. But my involvement with that organization, honestly, if I wouldn't have gone to the first meeting, I never would have run for office to start with. So after the State House campaign ended in 2018, we did not win that race. We made a lot of progress, but I knew that, what I had just gone through was exhausting and crazy, but this amazing experience, and we motivated thousands of people to get involved in politics up here, to pay more attention to what's happening on the local level. And so I worked, with the Northern York Dems, with Moms, with Indivisible throughout 2019, staying active, staying on the ground, working for our countywide candidates, knocking doors. And I also participated in the Emerge Pennsylvania training program, I wasn't sure if I wanted to run again, but I knew that when I ran, I felt like a passion and an excitement that I hadn't felt in a long time. So I knew I didn't want to let go of that. So Emerge was an incredible experience. And towards the end of that program, one of my Emerge sisters said to me, like, well, what are you going to run for next? We were doing mock endorsement interviews, and I gave this amazing fake interview to a fake teachers union for practice. And I was pretending that I was running for state senate just to kind of like do something different than what I had already done and make myself think on my feet a little bit more. And she said to me, you really shouldn't run for state senate. And I thought to myself, like, that's crazy. Like, I couldn't know. But then I thought about all the experiences I had had with my state senator's office, from the time I called to offer my opinion on a bill that would have allowed teachers to carry guns in school and was actually screamed at on the phone by his office manager or whoever I was talking to. That was not a great experience. And then I also tried for several weeks last year to schedule meetings with him around raising the minimum wage. And every time I called, I was told I was on the agenda for their scheduling meeting. And yet conveniently, my meeting was never scheduled. And I just feel like people in this district deserve more. They deserve better. They deserve somebody who actually wants to hear what they think, even if they don't agree with them. So I just, after a lot of thought and yes, I'm going to run, and then no, I'm not going to run. I was asked to run by someone I respect greatly, and we decided to go for it.
Awesome. Yeah. And we thank you for that. We think you're an awesome candidate, obviously, and we're thrilled you made that decision. So you talked about in your introduction being a teacher, obviously, being an educator. And I think anyone that knows educators knows that that is a huge part of their heart. The educators don't get paid enough. They have long hours, even when parents maybe or others don't think that they're working long hours, or they get their summers off. We hear that often. We know teachers actually have a lot of weight to bear on their shoulders. So we know that's one of your top areas of interest, obviously. Pennsylvania is among one of the states that has the greatest disparity in education funding, obviously between poor districts and more affluent districts. If successful, obviously, if you win this election, when you win this election, we should say, you'll represent some of that disparity in districts. There are some definitely more rural, there are some more urban, and then there are some more suburban school districts that fall within your region. Explain kind of your approach to or thoughts on education funding at the state level, and even just maybe plans or thoughts that you have about improving not just the funding but schools in general. I know that could be a 12-hour conversation at least, but just kind of overall, what your thoughts are on that.
Yeah, I could talk about this all day, but I'll try and keep it succinct. So I teach music, and I started teaching in 2009. And so, you all know what was happening in the economy in 2009. Things were not great. Not a great time to be entering public education and teaching the arts. What's the first thing people cut when they run out of money? Typically it's music or art or guidance or, the things that actually make kids want to go to school. So my whole career has kind of been in the shadows of that crisis, and also Governor Corbett's, decision to essentially slash $1 billion from the education budget. And I know some of that was one-time federal funding, whatever. It wasn't replaced. We were underfunding our schools to begin with. And then, that cut was huge, and that was felt all over the state. And we maybe have rebounded from that. But when you think about what costs, costs go up every year. Special education costs alone are rising at an astronomical rate, and we are not where we need to be. We're caught up to where we should have been in 2011. It's 2020. So, this is just a problem that is not getting the attention that it needs, other than, from candidates like me who are screaming about it to anyone who will listen. But in the state government, it doesn't seem to really matter too much to them. We're losing funding to charter schools, especially right now. We are seeing an exodus of students to cyber charters. Parents aren't comfortable sending their kids back to school, and too many of our schools are in a position where they're de facto childcare, and parents have to go to work, and there are no good options here. So this is just compounded by the fact that we're already understaffed and under-resourced. So I would like to see the state actually pony up the amount of money it should be spending on public education, but should be about 50%, and we're nowhere near that right now. Which then I think everyone knows falls back on school districts. And that's why your property taxes are constantly going up, and nobody wants higher property taxes, right? But until the state actually kicks in the amount of money it should be for our schools, there's not a whole lot we can do about that. And that's frustrating to everyone, no matter where you fall on the political spectrum. So I would like to see the state actually fund schools like it's supposed to, and we need to be moving to funding all of that money through the fair funding formula that was passed a few years ago. But I know and a lot of folks know, only new funding goes through that formula, which means we're not closing the gaps between districts who are really hurting and those who are not. And I've taught at 2 school districts within the Senate district, and it is night and day. And they're only about 10 minutes apart from each other. But it's completely different what resources one district has compared to the next. And that happens all over the state. And it's inequitable. We are one of the worst states in the country for the disparities between, in the same county. We're, like I said, 10 minutes away. And it's not fair to our students, and especially now. And it's going to be a lot worse next year. The state legislature passed, we're going to level fund schools this year at the same level we had last year. But what we are going to face next year is going to be devastating if this isn't addressed, because of the amount of students that we're losing to these other, to like cyber and charter schools, and because of the revenue that we will have lost this year due to the pandemic. So this is top of mind for me all the time. Especially now, it is so much more important that we focus on supporting our schools.
Yeah, absolutely. And you touched on something that, our next question, obviously the 12-ton elephant in the room these days is the pandemic. And obviously we've seen at the local level, the state level, the federal level, everyone's been affected by this. So, let's say campaign's over, tomorrow morning you wake up and you're state senator. What should the state legislature be doing to tackle the COVID pandemic here on a local basis?
There are a couple of really glaring issues. And I'm going to speak to my own experience first because it's mine, so that's easiest to do. We are not testing nearly enough people, and testing should be covered. We have folks who are afraid to go get tested because they are afraid to get the bill, and that is unacceptable. Healthcare is something, again, that's top of mind. A lot of folks know my dad just recovered from cancer. This is a really personal issue to me all the time. And now, again, pandemic magnifies everything. So testing needs to be completely covered. And I think we're getting there. I think it's just hard to know because the information is changing constantly. But it needs to be much more widespread and much more readily available to anyone who needs it. And the results cannot take 10 days to come back. Because by that point, who knows how many folks you could have infected unknowingly. I know for me and for a lot of folks, again, speaking as a teacher, childcare has been a huge problem during this, because the responsibility of this is falling on our schools, right? A lot of folks want to talk about how kids aren't, they don't get sick as easily, they're not spreading, and that's because we kept them home and we kept them safe and protected, and they weren't around, thousands of their peers. We're about to send our kids back to school, and who knows what's going to happen. Childcare is a serious concern, because if schools go virtual again, which would be safer for our kids, a lot of working parents are really stuck. I am really stuck. Right. My husband works out of the home 3 days a week, and his employer allows him to work at home the other 2 days. But if I'm back in my classroom, I'm expected to be physically at school as a teacher. If my son's school district goes virtual, that puts me in a really tough spot. And not everyone can just say, like, I need to take leave or I need to quit my job so I can stay home with my child. This is a huge problem. And childcare has been difficult for a lot of families to afford before this, but the state should be implementing some kind of program to help keep childcare centers open, to make sure that their staff members are being paid what they deserve, a living wage and hazard pay on top of that. And it needs to be more widely accessible to everyone. This is a huge problem. Small businesses are closing. We should be helping them maintain payroll. Maybe instead of giving huge tax breaks to billionaires in the first Recovery Act, we could have focused that money on small businesses who actually need it. Help them keep their doors open, help them meet payroll and pay their bills to weather the storm and do what's safest for everyone. And then I already mentioned school funding is going to be a huge crisis next year. And that would be number one. We want people to be healthy and we want them to be safe, and then they need to get their education. So, I mean, I could go on. There are 100 things, but those are like top of mind, the things I would be focusing on first.
Yeah, and just to kind of elaborate just a little bit more on that, we know that your opponent in this race is one of those individuals that was out there, the reopened Pennsylvania, not wearing the mask, not following kind of the protocol that it was best advised, based on the knowledge and the science that's out there. How do you see yourself in a role as a state senator, kind of, I guess, for lack of a better phrase, being a better example for your constituents?
I think it's just a real difference in lived experience. My priorities are a lot different, I think, than those of the incumbent. I have a small child at home who is my whole world. Again, I have vulnerable family members with my dad just going through chemo. And so my family's been taking this very seriously. And as an educator who comes into contact with hundreds of students every day, it's really scary to me to think that there are people out there who either don't trust the science or don't think it's important enough to keep people safe. If we're not doing everything we can to prevent this from getting worse, why are we there? Yes, the economy is important. Like, yes, we need to make sure that we are being accountable, that we are doing all the other things that legislators need to do. But it doesn't really matter if you pass this bridge renaming bill if there are people dying in your community. And so to me, it's a no-brainer that, what we should be doing is focusing on how to keep people safe and how to keep our economy afloat, but not out, just pretending that the science is wrong. It's been very confusing to watch, honestly.
Yep, I agree, absolutely. So shifting gears a little bit, one of the things that our state legislators get criticized of frequently is that the legislative calendar is not really a challenging calendar. They are in session a good bit, but they're out of session more than they're in. What do you envision? Obviously, when you get into the state Senate, what do you envision doing on those days when the Senate's not in session?
Sure. So my son would say playing with him on the floor. Which there will be a little bit of, because they're only little ones, right? But I feel as though if we are paying these folks, like this is the largest, most expensive state legislature in the country, that's full time. They should be working full time. They should be working for us. Yeah. So one of the things I love about campaigning is constituent outreach, right? Like, we're calling voters every day. I personally call voters every day, even if they're not my party registration. They've already made it clear that they don't agree with me on something. I'm going to call you and have a conversation. We just did texting a week or two ago. We texted like 76,000 people in the district. And one of the questions was, would you like a call from Shanna? And a lot of people said yes, so I'm calling them. And one guy was like, oh, I actually fundraise for the Republican Party, but it says a lot about your character that you called me. And honestly, it's the most enjoyable part of running a campaign, actually talking to people, getting them, excited about the possibilities here in our state government. And that's what I would be looking to do as a senator. I want to hold regular town halls, and maybe they're virtual right now until we get this pandemic under control. But regular opportunities for folks to come and engage in an unscripted way, and that's not always comfortable. And there are going to be a lot of people in this district that are not going to agree with me on things, and I think it's important to hear from them too, because I'm in the opposite position right now, right? Where I'm that constituent who has something to say, and my state senator is not interested in listening to me. And I know how that feels, and I don't ever want to do that to someone in my district. So we're going to be looking to do a grassroots constituent service program, much like a campaign, where I want to call voters every week, and just be like, hey, I'm your state senator. I just want to check in. How are things? What's on your mind? And I feel like those are the things that are going to make this job so much better than what folks experience are with it right now, which is that most people don't know who their senator is or what district they're in. And I don't want that to be the case. I want folks to know that they've got somebody who is fighting for them in the Capitol every day, who is accessible to them, and who genuinely cares about what they think.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, too often we hear that our legislators are out of touch. They're not connecting with their constituents, and the realization is obviously, the constituents are the ones that really are their bosses. So it's good to hear, you'll have those routine check-ins. That's awesome. So I think a lot of people don't realize here in Pennsylvania, even though we have a Democratic governor right now, I don't think a lot of people recognize the fact that Republicans have been in the majority for a long time in Harrisburg. And when people say Harrisburg's broken, there's really only been one party that's been the majority. In the state Senate, Republicans have been in control of the state Senate for 26 years. Since 1994, Republicans have controlled the Senate. But we're close. Democrats obviously have, a fighting chance to actually take the Senate for the first time in 26 years. Your district is one that has been represented by a Republican for almost twice that amount of time. It's been a long time since there's been a Democrat in the 31st state Senate district. Talk a little bit about why is it time for change in both the 31st and the state Senate overall? Not necessarily just as a Democrat, but just as a whole, why is it time for change, in both those areas?
Absolutely. I'll talk specifically about the district in a minute, but I will say I know, and I think 2016 made it evident, that there are a lot of people who don't feel like either party has really fought for them. And that's frustrating. And I think even we, the people who are out knocking doors for Democrats all the time, we even feel that too a little bit at the national level, especially. And I think what it comes down to is it's not so much ideology, it's more we need change, because the same people who are upset about not making a living wage now, having skyrocketing property taxes, all the things that keep people up at night, we've had the same for so long, and those problems aren't going away. They're just not. And so I'm running as a Democrat, sure, but I'm running on a platform for, to fight for working families, even if they are not Democrats, even if they don't agree with me on maybe some social issues. I still think they deserve to make a living wage and have health insurance. So, I think the 2016 election made everybody feel a certain way, and there are people on all sides of the spectrum there. But it's really energized a lot of folks to pay a little bit more attention. And I think a lot of people are thinking a little bit more critically this time about, have our lives gotten better in the last 4 years? And I know the answer to that question for me. And I think a lot of people are in the same boat. Specifically, why are people ready for change here? This is the place to be. How often do we get to say that South Central Pennsylvania is where the magic happens, right? But when those congressional lines were redrawn in 2018, this 10th congressional district almost my entire district is nestled within the 10th congressional, and Eugene is one of the top targeted, flip seats in the country. So there's a lot of energy here. We have very competitive House and Senate races on both sides of the river. With George Scott running in the 15th, there are a couple of House districts in Harrisburg and a few in Cumberland County as well, who are targeted seats that these can flip. We're seeing voter registration. Democrats are out registering Republicans in Cumberland County. A big part of my district is that, West Shore suburb part of Cumberland County. Governor Wolf won this district in 2018. This is the first time the Democratic statewide candidate had won. That is not nothing. And it was a 1,000 vote margin. It wasn't huge, but it doesn't have to be huge. A win is a win. The energy behind Eugene's campaign, we have 11,000 more women than men registered to vote here, and people want to see more women in office. There are studies that show how much more efficient and effective legislatures are that have a higher representation of women in them. I don't think I have to tell anyone, people who know me personally know that I am lists and type A and color coded, and all the things have to be done. And they have to be done well, right? Or else I'm really tough on myself. And imagine how great that would be to have in the legislature. But the energy is here. We can feel it when we're talking to people on the phone. People are really ready for change. And if Biden is going to win the presidency, it's going to happen in central Pennsylvania. So we're really excited. We're trying to harness this energy. We're working closely with Eugene's campaign and the state house campaigns here. And our momentum is growing. We have over 800 unique donors in this race. That's 800 different people who have given us money in a place where there really hasn't been a competitive race in a really long time. There wasn't really much of a race in 2016 because there was a candidate switch. And then, like I said, everything kind of changed in 2018 with the redrawing of the congressional line. So, this year is the year, and we're going to do it.
Yep. Awesome. Yeah, it's long overdue, that's for sure. So now we get to the part that I know most candidates, it drives them crazy, because this is what we call our rapid fire. We just ask, we read off a statement or a word or a phrase here, and we just want you to say yes or no, whether you're in favor of it or not. If you do want to elaborate, I'll give you that opportunity when we're through the list. But it's always tough for candidates because they really want to dig deep. These are important issues. So let's start off with, are you in favor of an increase in the minimum wage?
Yes.
I think I know the answer to this one, but how about pay equity for women?
Yes.
How about the assault weapons ban?
Yes.
Death penalty. Are you in favor or not in favor of the death penalty?
I'm not in favor of the death penalty.
How about eliminating property taxes?
I'm not in favor. Sorry, not what's proposed. It's not possible.
Yeah. Investing in the state's infrastructure.
Yes.
Investing in green industries, technology, jobs, all of that as a whole.
Yes.
Yeah. All right. And the last one is I give a little bit of explanation behind it. It's the 2-year state budget cycle. This crops up every few years in the state legislature, very simply because the state the legislators invest a lot of time in developing a budget annually. And sometimes there is criticism that they spend too much time on that. And if we went to a 2-year state budget cycle, it would free up more time for actual legislation and actual laws and bills to be passed through the state house and state senate. So, and we know that legislators some are in favor, some are not, some probably have not even given this any thought. But is this something that you think you would be willing to consider, or is it something that you think we should kind of steer away from?
Anything to make this body more efficient. So I would say yes to doing a little bit more research to see if this is something we could actually do. Because if it would save time, then like, yeah, we should do that. As long as it's
Yeah.
responsible and we can revisit when we need to. Yes.
Yeah, awesome, awesome. So we'll give like 30 seconds here. If there's anything, and I know that's not even a lot, but anything that we just went through that list, is there anything in particular that jumps out that you wanted to say, another few words about?
Yeah, so I'm just gonna hop back real quick to the assault weapons ban. I do a lot of work with Moms Demand Action, and I know that your vocabulary and word choice mean a lot because there are a million definitions of what assault weapon even means, right? I am in favor of protecting people from needless violence. And so I think, you can hash out these details on how you define that. But if there is something that only exists for the sole purpose of killing as many people as quickly as possible, I think we need to have a discussion about whether or not civilians should own things like that. That being said, every Moms Demand volunteer will tell you we are not anti-Second Amendment. I know how important hunting is to culture, and even just collecting things. I'm not trying to take anyone's guns because I don't want them. But I just wanted to clarify. Anything we can do to save people's lives, why would we not try to do that?
Right. That makes sense. I think I personally feel that's common sense, but yeah, I agree. So I'll give you an opportunity here. Just, kind of a couple closing remarks. If you have anything that you want to say, certainly make sure that, you share your website, how folks can contribute to your campaign, either with money or with time, as a volunteer or both. And really kind of the floor is yours. Anything you want to add, feel free to go ahead.
Sure. So website is shanna4pa.com, and it's SHANNA. You can see it on the wall behind me. And you can donate the campaign there. You could be our 804th unique donor if you'd like, because it's going to take a lot of money to flip the seat. Republicans notoriously have all the money they could ever need because, everyone knows why that is. It's a little bit harder for female candidates to raise money in general. I am incredibly proud of how hard my team is working. We've raised a considerable amount of resources already, but it's just a fraction of what it's going to take to actually win. So every $5 is huge for us. You can also sign up to volunteer on the website. We are phone banking with other campaigns and our own campaign at least 5 out of 7 days a week. We are texting voters. We have a very ambitious goal to send a postcard to every voter in the district. We've gotten out over 10,000 already. I have a giant shipment arriving on my porch tomorrow. So we're ready to keep postcards going out to folks. They come with everything you need. They're super simple to do, but they work. People are calling and emailing and sending us Facebook messages almost every day, like, hey, I got your postcard, tell me more. And it's a great way to connect with voters. I will just say, when I started this campaign, I set out to fight for strong public education, for healthcare for all Pennsylvanians, to focus on climate change and an agenda that actually works for working people. And a lot has changed since January, but that focus has not. This pandemic has just made it more clear how desperately we need new leadership in Harrisburg who's actually going to focus on doing what's best for people. And we're in a moment that demands more from us right now. And I mentioned before, my life hasn't gotten any easier in the last 4 years. My student loans are still crazy. My job is still the only reason why I have health insurance. And I worry about my son. He's going to be in first grade this year, and what his future is going to look like. So when I think about the things that matter to me and my family, we haven't seen relief from the legislature that we have right now. We have a state senator who is governing far to the right of the district he's supposed to represent, and that's not acceptable anymore. We have a chance this year to actually restore a seat at the table for working people, to remove this senator who's not representing his district, and get someone there who wants to fight for people, because I know these struggles, because I live them too. And regardless of who people supported in the primary, we did have a contested primary. I'm hopeful that we can come together, that we can do what we need to do to flip the seat, that folks will pitch in their time, their money, their letter to the editor writing skills, and all the things you can do to really help get a campaign across the finish line. Because when I'm your state senator, I'm taking you with me, and I guess that's what I want people to remember.
Awesome. And I will just echo by saying, we need more moms, we need more educators at the table as well. And I think, those two experiences alone are enough to, qualify you more than the individual that's there now. So that's my personal take on it. So, well, I thank you so much for doing this tonight. And hopefully those that watched had get some of their questions answered. Just a plug for the Democratic Party of York County, I'll mention that we are doing this again on Wednesday night, which is August 19th at 7. We're going to have currently State Auditor General running for the Congressional 10th seat, Eugene D. Pasquale. So I'm looking forward to that. As well as check out our Facebook page and our website. We've got a number of activities going on this week with the convention happening. So as a matter of fact, I think Shanna's taking part in a virtual ice cream social tomorrow night. So if you want to watch and listen to Shanna and get some questions answered while she's enjoying ice cream and you're enjoying ice cream, have at it. So if you're interested, you can go to our website. It's www.yorkdems.org. And we're on pretty much all the social media channels, so you can check us out there. So again, Shanna, thank you so much for joining us tonight, and best of luck. We're going to be, like I said earlier, behind you 110% to get you to the state Senate.
Thank you so much for having me. And if anyone has questions, feel free to reach out, same on social or the website. Happy to talk.
Awesome. Great. Thank you. Thank you. Everyone have a good night.